Hello, my name is Christina and today I'm going to show you how you can get started in Analyze. So once you launch Analyze, you are presented with the directory. And from here we can start to create a data flow. We just need to go up here, click on Create, Data Flow, and this takes us to a new page of the software called the Designer. The Designer has 4 components. Over here on the left we have the Node panel, in the middle we have the canvas, and on the right is a Node Properties panel. Down here at the bottom is the data viewer. You can't see it just now because we haven't run any nodes yet, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. And all of these panels are collapsible. Clicking on it will remove it, and another click will bring it back. Just want to take a second and explain about the node panel over here. The whole purpose of Analyze is to acquire, transform, and publish data. And the node panel presents us with an array of nodes that allow us to do that. They're color-coded for convenient searching. And right up here at the top, we have a search box. This will take you directly to the nodes. You just need to input the name of the node. So let's start building a data flow. The first thing we need to do is acquire some data. And in this scenario, we're going to get it from an Excel node. So I'm going to go up here to my search box and type in Excel, find the node, and drag it onto the canvas. So the next thing we need to do is configure the node, and that happens over here in the Node Properties panel. So for this node, there's only one mandatory field. We need to input the full file path, including the file extension. So we can do that manually, or alternatively, we'll just get rid of that, and we can click on the file picker here, and that will take us to the file as well. So it's good practice in Analyze to rename your node to something meaningful to you in case you ever have to share this document. So I'm just going to call this one Orders and run the node. At this point, I want to stop for just a minute and tell you about some useful features. Every node has a help document associated with it. To get there, you just need to go over here to the Node Properties panel, click on the node name, and that will bring up a new tab that has lots of useful information about the nodes. The Excel file node is a reasonably easy node to configure. There's only one mandatory field, but some of them can get quite deep, and they have lots of optional fields as well, and this section of the help is really good for explaining what each of the properties do. The green tick here on the node indicates that the node has been run successfully, and when it does, it outputs the number of records over here. So this number tells us how many records have been processed. Now that we've run the node, the data viewer that I mentioned earlier can be seen. We just need to click on the number, and that will bring up the data viewer. So you can make it as big or as small as you like. So we can see here that this node has brought in 2 columns and several rows of data. There are 2 bubbles on either side of the node. They exist on most nodes. This one is the input pin, and this one is called the output pin. One more thing that I wanted to mention here before we move on is that at this point there has been absolutely no impact on the source data. So the only way that you can modify the source data is if you choose to overwrite it using one of our output nodes. Okay, so next we can bring data in from a CSV file. So go up here, search for CSV, and drag the node onto the canvas. Again, this one is pretty easy to configure. It just has one mandatory field, so you can input that here or choose to use the file picker over here. I'm going to rename this to Orders Ref and run the node. Now that we have a couple of data files, we can start to do some transformations. It's recommended in Analyze that we cleanse our data before performing analysis. So on this data set, let's remove any trailing white space, and down here we can change the data types. So to remove any trailing white space, we need to use the Trim Fields node. So I'm going to connect the output pin from here, connect it to the input pin on the Trim Fields node, and run it. Okay, so for this data set we want to change the data types. It's important to note in Analyze that if you want to join any data sets together, the data types have to be similar. So I'm just going to show you here that I want to, later on in the data flow, I want to join these 2 data sets based on the order ID, which we can see here is a double. I want to join it with order ref from this data set, which I can see here is a string. So one of those has to be changed because they're not a similar data type. So I'm going to change this one here to a double. And to do that, I need the Modify Fields node. So find it and drag it across. Insert the connection. So this node uses the embedded memory system, which is a really handy feature. So here are all our fields waiting to be modified. So there's a lot you can do with this node. You can rename the output fields if you want. But for this video, I'm just going to change this data type to a double. And run the node. Now that the data is clean, we can join the two data sets. To do this, I'm going to use a merge node. So I'll just need to connect the two output pins from each data set to the input pins on the node. Again, this node uses the embedded memory system. So we just need to tell the node which keys that we want to join the data sets on. And we just need to go down here to the field list grid. Here's where we select the fields that we want to include in the output. So I just want the order ID and the order ref. So I'm going to deselect these, rename the node to something meaningful, and run the node. To output the data, drag an Output Excel node onto the canvas. Provide the location of where you want the file to be written to, and run the node. And that's it. So we've acquired data from a couple of different data sources, we've cleansed it, we've transformed it, and we've output it. So the last thing that we need to do is just go up here to the hamburger menu, click Save As. Once you do that, your data flow will be written out here to the directory. Thank you for watching.